When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yeah, good morning to you, and thank you for listening and choosing to listen to this episode of Join Up Dots, or this podcast at least, because there's at least 3 podcasts out there that you might have decided to listen to, and so listening to this one, really appreciate it, and I don't take that lightly. Last week we had an email from a lady called Sarah in Wellington, New Zealand. It was about some nasty messages that I get on almost a daily basis. And at the end of it, she said, do you think there's a way to convert negative feedback into something constructive? Maybe a topic for a future episode. So I looked at it and I thought, yeah, I'm sure there is. And I've always been good at looking at negative stuff and trying to put a spin on it so that I gain something from it. A lot of people don't. They take it as like a personal attack. And it's not surprising that they feel that way, because I suppose receiving negative feedback, it's never easy. We don't like to be told that we haven't done as well as we thought we would have done in our O-levels and A-levels. That takes you back, doesn't it? Anyone who remembers O-levels and A-levels. It's our first instinct is really to just become defensive or frustrated or go, it's so unfair, I worked harder than everybody at that, there must be something wrong with the system. I've been through it with kids. However, if we shift our mindset, which isn't easy to do, we can turn that negative feedback into a real constructive tool that helps us grow. And the more we can grow as individuals, the more life will reward us. I totally believe that. That's not just me spouting podcast messages. It's my personal belief. So let's sort of break this down. How can we take negative feedback when we get it and look at it in a totally different way, and turn it into a positive force for growth? Well, the first thing I think you've got to do is just change your perspective on good or bad. You know that story, I might have said it on the podcast, but there's one about a Japanese farmer who never looked at anything as good or bad. It was just as it was. And the old story is he's farming on this ground and a horse runs into the ground, and he really needed a horse. And all his neighbours went, oh, that's lucky, you've now got a free horse. And he goes, is it lucky? Is it? I don't know. And they go, well, of course it's lucky. And then his son rides on the horse and falls off and breaks his leg. And they go, oh, that's so unfortunate. That's so bad, And he goes, is it? Who knows? And they go, of course it's bad. He's broken his leg. And then the military come in and they're looking for young guys to go to war. And they see the son and they go, oh, you've broken your leg. You can't. And it kind of goes on that story where when you're wrapped up in something, we might think that it's bad, but if you get far enough away from it, which we do on Join Up Dots all the time, you realise that the bad things were actually good things disguised as messages and learnings and stuff. So when you hear negative feedback, it is really tempting to think of it as an attack, but if you can see it as a chance to improve, then you're already winning the game. Feedback, even when it's not delivered kindly, often contains useful insights. My daughter will give me sort of negative feedback and I go, why do you say that? She says, because it is. And I go, no, that's not an answer. Tell me why. Oh, I don't want to get involved in that. And I say, I'm not responding to it unless you tell me why you think that. And then we start getting into a conversation. And more often than not, it does provide information that I can look at, even if it's for me to think, right, daughter, you're a complete idiot. But I'm now understanding why I think she's an idiot, and then I need to change my mindset to understand her mindset. it just contains useful information. And by changing our perspective and viewing criticism as an opportunity rather than a personal failure, you just open yourself up to possibilities. You really do. For example, if a colleague points out that you do a presentation at work, but it lacked clarity, so they're all sitting there thinking, I'm not really sure what's the point of this, you could look at that and go, okay, how do I learn from that and enhance my communication skills? Don't ever feel that it's discouraged. Look at it as a learning moment. They've told you something that they felt was right, and it may not be what you wanted because you've really prepared for this presentation and you've done your best job, but it's kind of fallen flat. You see it all the time with people doing best man speeches and stuff, and they get up there and they misread the room. And I was always really good at best man speeches. I only did 2, and I did a Father of the Bride one twice. And the Father of the Bride one was a lot harder because it wasn't like a roast. You weren't supposed to be slagging off your daughter. You were supposed to be encouraging her to another life. But all you're thinking really is, yeah, that bloke sitting next to you is going to be getting your clothes off later on, and I'm not too happy with that, but hey-ho, that's what life is. But the best man speech was great. You just write a load of jokes and then slag them off for 5 minutes and hopefully everybody laughs. But if you get that kind of feedback that it hasn't hit home, then change your perspective. I then think you need to ask clarifying questions. That's what I do with my daughter, because sometimes feedback can be vague, it can be unclear, it can just leave you feeling sort of unsure of what you're supposed to use it for. So asking questions can help you really understand why they're saying that, and this shows the person giving the feedback that you're serious about improving and you really want to listen. And we get it all the time at work. Your manager says, look, your recent report wasn't detailed enough. So don't just go, well, I thought it was, I worked for 5 days on it. Just go, right, okay, which areas do you think should require more detail? And then you can gain specific guidance, and they will see that you're taking them seriously and their responsibilities, and then break it down into actionable steps. Once you get that and you understand it, turn it into a plan of action. Break the feedback into small, actionable steps, which then makes it easier to tackle and ensures you focus on the right areas. Through Join Up Dots, I never just come up here to do stuff. I already know where I need to tackle. And I just have a few dots. And I think, right, okay, they're the next ones. I don't think, oh, I've got this to do and I've got that to do. I used to, but now I break it down into the smallest dots possible. So it's like a mental checklist. And so instead of feeling overwhelmed, I start just feeling structured, and I've got a kind of plan in front of me. It helps me improve without feeling lost. Now, it's all right saying this, because this is what I think. But of course, we can get a bit arsey, can't we? And we can get a bit emotional, and that's totally normal. We don't like to get told negative feedback. But however, staying calm and just listening can make a big difference. If my wife's giving me feedback, which she does, I just listen. And she says to me, aren't you going to come back with something? I go, no, I don't need to. I'm listening to what you're saying, and that's it. I take a deep breath and I focus on what's being said, and hopefully I can stay focused without thinking once again, what are you talking about? But, you know, that's marriage. But even if it's harsh, just listen and try to get the point of what they're saying, and don't fight fire with fire. Don't come back at them and go, yeah, oh, well, you're telling me about that. What about you? Just stay open and calm. You know, one of the things, my daughter, she's 19. And if anyone has daughters, you can pretty much be sure that they're a bit emotional at times. I've got 4 daughters. I haven't had 4 daughters. I've got 4 daughters, a wife, granddaughter, mum. I'm pretty much surrounded by women. And the younger ones can literally walk into a room in a good mood and come out in, you know, fire and brimstone instantly. One of the things that we say to her now is when she's getting really annoyed, we say, let's take the emotion out of it. Let's just look at the facts and take the emotion out of it. And it's really good to stop yourself getting caught up in how it's making you feel and separating yourself from the emotion from the facts. And at that stage, you and the provider of it can really get that feedback across, because you're focusing on the content of the message rather than that initial, well, sod you emotional reaction that stops you from ever seeing where you can genuinely improve. I've never really had a sod you sort of attitude to stuff. I certainly have. If somebody says I can't do it, I go, you watch me. And I have a sod you kind of attitude in that regard. But if somebody's giving me any kind of feedback, I just listen with no emotion at all. And I let it sort of flow over me over a few days. And more often than not, I will get the point they're making and tailor my approach to things by doing that. Going back to work, that's where you get most of the negative feedback. If your boss says something like that your work isn't as good as it used to be, take a moment to step back and think, why is there quality issues? Am I not doing as good? Am I just going through the motions a bit now? Have I got things going on at home that's taking my focus away from it? So you can look at these specific points, and it allows you to focus on solutions rather than feelings. And that self-reflection, I think, is the key thing to everything. Using that as a powerful mirror, it can really help us reflect on our behaviour and performance, highlighting areas that we won't have noticed before. So every feedback, even harsh, even if it's an email, whatever, it often contains valuable lessons. And sometimes you may not even realise it. I remember going on a holiday with a guy once. And leading up to the holiday, I started to think, God, he's pissing me off. He really is. And so I took him down the pub and I said, look, I think this holiday is going to be a bad idea. And he went, oh, why is that? Why do you think bad it is? And I said, because you're pissing me off. You're pissing me off all the time. Every time I look at you, I just can't stand you at the moment. And he was a bit taken back by the sort of harshness of it. But he did say, well, what am I doing? And I wanted to say, well, breathing, first of all, because I was a bit sort of worked up at that stage. But we got through it, and we went away for 2 weeks on a road trip through America. And other than once or twice when I could have thrown him out of the car at 90 miles an hour, it allowed me to realise what was bothering me about him, and he realised what he was doing that made me bother. There's 3 sides to every story. There's his side, there's my side, and then there's the truth. And that's what you need to do. You need to, with all feedback, you need to get through to the truth. And it's always there some way. And once you've got that, then the best way is to really follow up on it. Make improvements. Go back and say to the person, do you think I've improved on this? Show your commitment to growth. Because in the end, negative feedback doesn't have to be a setback. This is one of the biggest things that you'll get building your dream life. With the right approach, anything that is bad that happens to you when you've worked really hard on something and it hasn't gone anywhere can become one of your most valuable tools for growth. And by shifting your perspective, staying open, asking questions, taking actionable dots and steps, you can really transform that criticism into a powerful force for improvement. You know, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a roadmap to becoming the best version of yourself. I can't say it any better than that. And so when somebody is telling you what you don't want to hear, just sit back, take a deep breath, and just think that one question: why are they actually saying this? And really think about it from their side, because the truth is somewhere in the middle. Hopefully that has been of use to you. And if anybody else has got any podcast episodes that they want us to create, then drop us a line and we will develop that. But it's ups and downs, it's goods, it's bads, but there's nothing that will stop you unless you stop yourself. And I'm sure none of you are going to do that. Until next time, we will see you again. If you like that podcast episode, if you like the podcast, please subscribe, rate and review on any platform. Really, really helps us. Only takes a second. And we'll be here with you again as soon as we can. Look after yourselves. Cheers. See ya. Bye-bye.
That's the end of Join Up Dots. You've heard the conversation. Now it's time for you to start taking massive action. Create your future, create your life. It's the only life you've got. We'll be back again real soon. Join Up Dots, join up dots, join up dots, join up dots.